One of the most important things, if not the most important thing, when you're planning an orthodontic case is not necessarily to take what Invisalign gives you as the gospel, but to make sure that the movements you see on the screen are movements that would be able to take place, knowing how teeth move, especially if you have orthodontic experience. Now, I'm showing you an end result right here. And what I want to point out here is the upper anteriors. Now, you can see they have a little bit of a forward flaring to them, but I would consider this to be reasonable tooth alignment and what seems like what would be a nice end result. Now, if you're an orthodontist or if you've done a lot of Invisalign or braces treatment as a general dentist, I'm going to ask you, what do you think would have been the presentation of these teeth pre-treatment? And I think there were really two answers that I could see that would give this result. The most common would be teeth that were pushed inward so that the arch was pushed in sort of a reverse arch form, and these teeth and crowded. And now we have brought them forward and made them flare out. Another possible thing that could present this as the final result would be if the teeth were even more flared and spaced. And then if they were brought back in to the point where the spaces were closed, you would have something like this. But here is how the patient presents at the beginning of the treatment. 1, 2, 3, like this. And so I'm going to show you this from a few vantage points. They are crowded, but if you look, if you notice what's happening here, the teeth are being moved in a way that the roots of the upper anteriors are moving palatal. You can see that pretty clearly here if you focus in this area. And if you look in the occlusal views, you can see how those roots are getting pushed palatally. Now, even with braces, and certainly with Invisalign, this is a very hard movement to do. And what's happening here is there is a function of retraction, but it's not even retraction, it's palatal root torque. It's not necessary in this case, and it's very hard to execute. In fact, I think it's making the teeth look more flared at the end. Now, I don't think this would play out. I think these aligners would start to fit poorly because they wouldn't mimic what the aligners are trying to ask them to do. So let's see how it would look if I removed that movement that is planned here. So I'm going to push the roots back towards closer to the angle that they're in terms of a buccolingual position. Because I want to see how it will look if the tendency that I think will want to play out plays out. So here, I'm going to do the same to the lateral here. Now, you notice you still see the rotations and you see a lot of expansion. But let's look at this from this view. And now, to me, there's even less apparent flaring, and that's okay. I think this looks like a better result. I have no idea why this. All right, now I'm still seeing a little of it here. You see how it looks like they're getting pushed back at the gingival margin? So I'm just going to do a little bit more of this. And I'm actually removing movement. Anything you could do to make less movement and still get a nice looking result is going to be better with aligners. Now you're focusing on just the rotations. And that's a nicer looking end result. And then you might have noticed the expansion looking like quite a bit in the second premolar reason. The reason for this is because originally the molars were expanding, and I made them not move because the starting positions of those molars are locked in beautifully or pretty good, and I don't want to mess that up. So the only change I have to make that I didn't change is just temper it a little bit by moving the second premolars in a little bit bilaterally. Still some expansion, but now it's more balanced. And I will do this on the bottom as well. Here we go. This one is a little different. I'm going to leave that like that. All right, so here's our final result. It's a nicer looking crown angulation, and it made the case even easier.